If you're using NetSuite and want to send contracts for signatures such as sales orders, sales contract, or even HR onboarding paperwork directly from NetSuite via Docusign, you may have already looked at the Docusign for NetSuite standard connector that Docusign sells. And that's a great choice if your use case is quite simple. However, it is full of limitations. And in this video, I want to go over what this standard Docusign for NetSuite connector can help you do, its strengths, its weaknesses, and when it makes sense to build a custom integration between NetSuite and Docusign. Let's get into it. So once you've installed the plugin, if you head to the Setup Docusign page here, you'll see that you can only choose some of the record types. You cannot choose employee, for example. And so that's the first limitation that you're going to hit if you want to place your button to create your Docusign envelope on an object that is not a standard object and is not sales related. For example, here you cannot see the employee object and you can't see the vendor object either. And if you're wondering who I am, my name is Sofian Saudi. I used to be a Docusign consultant back in 2019, and for the last 6 years, I've been leading the Solusign team. Solusign is an agency that helps organizations who are processing a lot of paperwork, retrieve all that time that is wasted on copy-paste, sending documents and chasing documents. And the way we do this is by helping you set up Docusign the right way, customize it for your needs, and integrating it with all the apps that you use on a daily basis. An example of that will be the ability to generate a document at a click of a button from anywhere in your CRM or ERP like NetSuite. You can also track the signing status of your documents directly from that software without having to navigate to Docusign. And when your documents are signed by all your signers, the PDF gets stored automatically, renamed with a naming convention of your choice, so you never have to dig through email chains to find that document or that contract. And if people have entered information in the form field, that data goes back to any system that you want. So we can use some of the data to update the CRM, create an invoice, trigger an email, whatever you'd like. And the purpose of this is to help you automate the contracting process, whether it's part of your sales or HR or vendor contract, whatever it is. And you can absolutely do this on your own by watching those tutorials and trial and error. But if you don't have the willingness to spend weeks trying to fix your Docusign problems, then you can schedule a consultation with me or one of my team members using the link just down below. During the call, we'll review your documents, your process, and suggest the best implementation roadmap for your company's unique workflow. But for now, let's go back to the purpose of this video to analyze what can and can't you do with a Docusign standard NetSuite connector, and when does a custom integration make sense. Let's get back to it. Now, let's say that we want to place the Send with Docusign button on our estimate object. Very typical kind of record type that you would want to use this connection for, right? We have this Send with Docusign button that was automatically added, but if we take a look at the recipients here, the recipients aren't mapped. And so that means that I have to enter my recipient manually. And if I click next, my fields are not appearing on the document. Why is that? The reason the fields are not on the envelope is because if you're on B2C, you will often need to store name and email of your customers in custom fields. And the out-of-the-box Docusign integration does not allow you to map custom fields to the Docusign recipient inside of your workflow. And so that's another limitation. Now, the next limitation you're going to run into is using templates. By default, NetSuite is a great document generation tool. So why would you want to use the Docusign template system and not just use NetSuite? Well, it might be because the workflow you're trying to accomplish might need to be set up at the Docusign level, which means you need to use the Docusign templates because this is where the more complex logic and workflow can be configured. However, if you look at the Docusign templates that you can map to your NetSuite button, unfortunately, only static PDF Docusign template types are supported. This means that if you want to create a polished document like this one, where you might have 2, 3, 4 line items in a table, and you only want to show the rows that are relevant, where the layout is fully dynamic, then you will want to use the Docusign Advanced templates. However, the Docusign for NetSuite connector does not allow you to connect to those more complex templates, which means your documents are going to look like standard static PDFs as opposed to very polished document like the NetSuite document generation system works natively. So that's another limitation. The way that you're going to be able to work with Docusign template is limited. One example of this would be if you send a contract to someone, then based on the deal value, you want that contract to go to a different person. So if it's under 50K, you want it to be going straight to the client. And if it's above 50K, you want it to go first to an internal approver. Well, you won't be able to do that directly inside of NetSuite and have the envelope being sent automatically once the first approver has approved the transaction. And you might not even be able to use the Docusign template either because your documents are not going to look as polished. So you kind of have to choose, do you want efficiency? Do you want polishedness? The next problem with the integration is that when you send an envelope to more than one person, you typically want to track the status for each person signing because otherwise you don't know who you need to follow up with. It might be that you have the COO and the CFO and legal, and you want to know where the document is stuck so that you always know what is the best next step and you can take quick action. That's not going to be possible with the standard Docusign for NetSuite integration, simply because you can only track the envelope status and not the recipient status. And when your documents have been signed by all parties, the standard Docusign for NetSuite connector will automatically retrieve the signed document and attach it to the record from which you sent the envelope initially, which is very helpful because you don't have to download, then upload inside of the NetSuite record. But the problem is that if you're sending a contract or a form to someone and you want that person to enter information in your form so that you can reuse it in the future, well, unfortunately, it's just a one-way integration. The data Docusign collects will not go back to NetSuite. And that's really unfortunate because this means you're going to have to copy-paste. So I've prepared some sort of real-life scenarios so that you understand what the out-of-the-box connector cannot handle well. A sales approval workflow. So if the manager approves a sales order through NetSuite, we're not talking about Docusign, then that sales order being approved by the manager will not be able to kick off the Docusign workflow. So in other words, you ask the manager to approve this sales order, they approve it in NetSuite, then the estimate or the contract or whatever the document may be will not go straight away to the signees. Somebody will have to manually click on a button or a few buttons, I would say, to send the envelope. Employee onboarding, I've already touched on this. You cannot have a send via Docusign button on an employee record, which means this cannot be automated if your use case is HR related. And for B2C couples, same thing. You cannot map your recipient fields to NetSuite custom field, which means, again, it's going to be data entry. And the Docusign for NetSuite connector cannot handle bulk sends, which means if you want to send a lot of contracts at the same time, you won't be able to. Now, the good news is that you can create a custom integration with Docusign. And so that custom integration also saves you the cost of the Docusign for NetSuite connector, which is about $400 a month. So now, when does a custom integration pays off? Well, it's when you want to trigger the send of a contract when a sales order is approved. Or maybe you want to build a multi-document envelope with conditional visibility. Maybe based on XYZ criteria, you want to include this document, but not this document. You want to include twice the same document because there are two signers. You'll be able to send the envelopes directly from NetSuite from any record type. Use any advanced Docusign feature because we're not limited by what Docusign has built in that button. When a sales order is approved, the documents can be sent for signature immediately. You can send Docusign web forms. You can also track the signer level status directly inside NetSuite. You can send envelopes in bulk. You can leverage templates that are much more easy to build inside of Docusign than they are in NetSuite, because if you want to play with the templating in NetSuite, you have to be a developer. In Docusign, you just need to learn how to use the product by clicking and pointing. You obviously need some training, but you don't need to learn how to code before you can build the templates. So that's also something that's great about leveraging a custom integration. If you ever want to make changes to the templates in the future, you don't need to call a developer to help you with that. In case you're collecting data from signers and not just signatures, then that data will flow back directly inside of NetSuite without having to do any copy-paste. Now, the trade-off of this is that it's more complex to set up. So yes, the Docusign for NetSuite standard connector is easy to set up, but it only works in a few cases. With the custom integration for NetSuite, you can make anything work, you can make anything happen. But in terms of complexity, you're gonna have to learn how the Docusign API works and how to build custom code. This is something that we can definitely help you with. We've done it many times in the past. So if you need help to create your Docusign for NetSuite custom integration, don't hesitate to book a call with me or one of my team using the link in the description just below. During the call, we'll review your current process, look at the documents you're looking to automate, and we'll provide you with the best implementation roadmap based on your current needs. I will see you in the next video, and until then, happy signing. Ciao.